Life has a way of making us believe that we need a circle, a crowd, a chorus of voices around us to validate our existence. But what happens when those voices aren't there? When the phone stays silent, the invitations never come, and the world moves on as if you are invisible? There is a woman who walks through life alone, not by choice, not by some grand decision to isolate herself, but because life unfolded in a way that left her standing on her own. Maybe she was the one who always showed up but was never truly seen. Maybe she was the strong one, the one people leaned on until they found someone else, leaving her with nothing but echoes of conversations that once made her feel important. She knows the weight of an empty room. She has sat at tables meant for many, feeling the hollow space beside her. She has learned how to be her own comfort on days when the world felt too heavy. And yet here she stands, not broken, not bitter, but whole. Because there is something powerful about a woman who has learned to exist in her own company. She does not shrink to fit into spaces that do not welcome her. She does not beg for borrowed affection or chase after friendships that were never meant to stay. She is not defined by the absence of others, but by the presence of herself. This woman has discovered that loneliness is not an enemy, but a teacher. It has shown her that she is more than enough, that her laughter, her thoughts, her dreams, they matter, even if no one else is there to witness them. She has faced silence and found strength in its lessons. She has walked through empty streets and realized that every step she takes is her own, leading her somewhere she was always meant to go. The world may tell her that a woman without friends is incomplete, but she knows better. She is not waiting to be chosen, not waiting for approval, not waiting for someone to pull up a chair and say, "You belong." She belongs because she decides to, and so she rises every day, not as a woman who has been left behind, but as a woman who walks ahead, unapologetically, courageously, and completely whole. There is a moment in every woman's life when she looks around and realizes that she is standing alone. The world moves fast, people come and go, and somewhere along the way she finds herself in a space where companionship is absent. In that silence, doubt whispers, telling her that without friends, without a circle to belong to, she is somehow less. But doubt is a liar, and she knows it. A woman without friends is not a woman without worth. She does not need others to confirm her value, to remind her that she is enough. She is enough because she exists, because she breathes, because she dares to wake up every day and face life on her own terms. There is power in that. There is power in knowing that her happiness is not a borrowed feeling depending on someone else's presence. It is hers to create, to hold, to protect. She has walked through days where the phone never rang, where plans were never made, where she had to sit in a cafe, at a park, in a room with only her own thoughts for company. And while the world may call that loneliness, she calls it something else: freedom. The freedom to think deeply, to dream wildly, to make choices without the weight of outside opinions. The freedom to love herself without conditions, to be her own safe space, to move through life without needing permission to take up space. She does not wait to be invited. She does not beg for a seat at a table that was never meant for her. She builds her own table, her own world, and fills it with the things that bring her peace. She is not missing anything. She is gaining everything, because she has discovered that the deepest love, the most loyal friendship, and the strongest support system have been within her all along. The world may look at her and wonder how she does it, how she wakes up every day without a hand to hold, without a friend to call. But she smiles, knowing that her strength is not measured by the number of people around her. It is measured by the fire within her, and that fire, burning with quiet resilience, is more than enough. There are moments when silence feels heavier than words, when the absence of familiar voices creates an emptiness that lingers. A woman without friends knows this silence well. It follows her through the days when there are no calls to answer, no plans to look forward to, no shared laughter echoing through the air. The world may tell her that loneliness is something to fear, something to run from, something to fix. But what if loneliness is not an enemy? What if it is a teacher? She has learned that loneliness is not a punishment. It is an invitation to sit with herself, to hear the thoughts she once drowned out with noise, to truly understand who she is when no one is watching. In this space, she discovers the strength she never knew she had. She faces the discomfort, the ache of solitude, and instead of letting it break her, she lets it shape her. She learns to be comfortable in her own presence, to enjoy the stillness, to find beauty in the quiet. There is a transformation that happens when a woman embraces solitude instead of fearing it. She no longer looks for distractions to fill the empty spaces. She does not chase after companionship just to avoid being alone. Instead, she listens to herself, to her dreams, to the voice inside her that had been buried under the weight of others' expectations. She learns to trust herself, to find clarity in the silence, to grow in ways she never could when she was surrounded by the noise of the world. Loneliness teaches her that she is enough. It teaches her that happiness is not something that depends on others, but something she carries within. It teaches her that she is whole, even when she stands alone. The world may pity her, may wonder how she survives without the comfort of a circle, but she knows the truth. She is not surviving, she is thriving. She is walking through life with a deeper understanding of herself, with a connection to her own soul that no one else can give her, and in that she finds a strength that is unshakable. There is a kind of silence that many fear, the kind that stretches across empty rooms, the kind that follows a woman who walks alone. But for her, this silence is not a curse. It is a space where she has learned to listen, to observe, to understand herself in ways that those constantly surrounded by people never will. She has walked through days where there was no one to share stories with, no one to lean on, no one to remind her that she mattered. And yet, she has discovered something extraordinary. Her own voice is enough. In the absence of others, she has found herself. She has learned that strength is not in the number of hands that hold hers, but in the steadiness of her own grip. The world often measures a person's worth by the company they keep, by the laughter shared in crowded rooms, by the validation that comes from external connections. But she knows better. She knows that true strength is not in the presence of many, but in the ability to stand firm when there is no one else around. She has mastered the art of being her own source of comfort. When life became overwhelming, she did not have the luxury of unloading her burdens onto another. Instead, she carried them, rearranged them, and found ways to lighten them without anyone's help. She has faced heartbreak without shoulders to cry on. She has celebrated victories without an audience to cheer for her. And yet, she continues to rise because she has discovered that her resilience does not depend on the presence of others. It is something she has built within herself. There is an undeniable power in a woman who can walk through silence and not be afraid. A woman who has faced loneliness and turned it into strength. A woman who does not need constant companionship to feel whole. She knows that while friendships and connections are beautiful, they are not the foundation of her existence. She is her own foundation, her own safe space, her own unwavering support. And in that quiet strength, she has found a power that no one can take away from her. There is a certain kind of woman who has walked through life without a hand to hold, without a familiar voice calling her name, without a friend to reassure her that she is not alone. But she has learned something that many never do. She is her own anchor. She does not wait for someone to rescue her from the weight of her own struggles. She does not rely on borrowed strength. She has built her own. She has spent countless days and nights being her own source of comfort. When the world became too heavy, she did not have the privilege of turning to a friend for reassurance. She had to be the one to calm her fears, to wipe her own tears, to remind herself that she was strong enough to endure whatever life placed before her. And with every challenge she faced alone, she discovered that she was more capable than she ever imagined. There were moments when she wished for companionship, for someone to sit beside her and share the weight of existence. But in time, she realized that while friendships are beautiful, they are not a requirement for happiness. She found joy in her own company, strength in her own presence, and a deep sense of peace in knowing that she is enough. She does not need constant validation, does not need others to define her worth, because she has already claimed it for herself. She wakes up each day knowing that she is responsible for her own happiness. She does not wait for invitations, for affirmations, for someone to remind her that she matters. She already knows she does. She moves through life with the quiet confidence of a woman who has learned to be her own support system. She creates her own joy, builds her own dreams, and walks forward with unwavering strength, knowing that no matter what, she has herself. And that is more than enough. There is a moment in every woman's life when she stands at a crossroads. One path is crowded with people, with voices telling her who to be, how to act, where to fit in. The other is quieter, lonelier, but lined with something far more valuable: authenticity. She has spent too much time walking roads that were not meant for her, bending herself to fit into spaces that did not welcome her, trying to earn a place where she was never truly seen, but not anymore. She has learned that shrinking herself to be accepted is far too high a price to pay. She no longer sits at tables where she is only tolerated, where her presence is convenient but never cherished. She has stopped knocking on doors that refuse to open, stopped waiting for people to realize her worth. She knows now that real belonging is never something you have to beg for. The right spaces, the right people, the right opportunities, they will never require her to be anything less than who she truly is. There were times she tried to hold on to friendships that had already faded. Times she silenced her own voice just to avoid feeling out of place. But she has come to understand that being alone is far better than being surrounded by the wrong people. She chooses solitude over forced connections, self-respect over shallow acceptance, and inner peace over external validation. The world may not understand a woman who refuses to settle. They may call her difficult, call her distant, call her too much or too little, but she does not exist to meet their expectations. She walks forward, unafraid to be on her own, knowing that she is not missing out. She is making space. Space for real connections, for real love, for a life that is true to who she is. And in that choice, she finds a strength that no crowd could ever give her. There was a time when she believed she had to earn love, when she thought that friendship was something to chase, that belonging was something to beg for. She would shrink herself, soften her edges, make herself easier to hold, just so she wouldn't be left behind. But no matter how much she gave, no matter how much she bent, it was never enough. And then one day, she realized something. She was done seeking approval. She was done proving her worth to people who never truly saw her. She has learned that real connection is never forced. It is never something you have to plead for or shape yourself to fit into. The love that is meant for her will come without conditions, without requirements, without the need for her to be anything other than herself. And if that love, that friendship, that companionship does not come, she will not chase it. She will not lower her voice, will not dim her light, will not trade pieces of herself just to be accepted by people who were never meant to stay. The world teaches women to be likable, to be agreeable, to be pleasing. It teaches them that their value is tied to how well they fit into the lives of others. But she refuses to be measured by someone else's standards. She no longer looks outside herself for validation because she has found it within. She does not need approval to know that she is enough. She does not need constant reassurance to know that she is worthy. She has stepped into her own power, and there is nothing more unstoppable than a woman who no longer needs permission to take up space. She walks through life with quiet confidence, not because she has never known loneliness, but because she has embraced it. She has stood in the silence, faced the fear of being on her own, and realized that she is still whole. She does not need to be surrounded to feel important. She does not need to be chosen to know that she matters. She belongs to herself, and that is more than enough. There was a time when she thought wholeness came from others, from the warmth of friendships, from shared laughter, from voices that fill the empty spaces of her life. But life has a way of teaching lessons in solitude, in quiet moments where there is no one else to turn to but herself. She once believed she was incomplete without a circle, without a hand to hold, without a familiar voice calling her name. But as the days passed, as the seasons changed, she discovered something she never expected. She was whole all along. She is not defined by who stands beside her. She does not measure her worth by the number of people who check in on her, who remember her birthday, who invite her into their lives. Her existence is not made lesser by the absence of others. If anything, it has given her the rarest gift: unshakable self-awareness. She has spent time in her own company, learned the rhythm of her own heartbeat, understood her own thoughts without interference. She knows who she is, not because someone else told her, but because she took the time to listen. There is a world that tells women they are only as valuable as their relationships, that their significance comes from being needed, from being included. But she does not live by those rules anymore. She does not seek completion in another person, does not fill her silence with meaningless distractions. She has looked in the mirror and realized that everything she was searching for outside of herself, love, understanding, companionship, was always within. She walks through life without the need to prove herself. She does not seek external validation because she has already validated herself. She does not feel empty because she has filled herself with purpose, with dreams, with the kind of strength that only comes from standing alone and thriving in it. The world may not understand a woman who is whole by herself, but that is not her concern. She is not waiting to be saved, not waiting to be chosen, not waiting for someone to come and complete her story. She is the story, and that is more than enough. She has walked through life without the comfort of familiar voices, without the safety of a hand reaching back for hers, without the presence of someone saying, "I am here for you." She has known the kind of loneliness that echoes in empty rooms, the kind that settles deep in the heart on nights when the world feels too quiet. But she has also known something far greater, the courage to walk alone. There was a time when she hesitated, when she waited for someone to notice her absence, for someone to pull her into their world and remind her that she belonged. But the waiting ended the day she realized she was not meant to follow, she was meant to lead. She no longer stands still, hoping to be chosen. She no longer lingers in places that do not see her. Instead, she moves forward, not because she has never felt the weight of solitude, but because she refuses to let it define her. Every step she takes is a step towards something greater. She has learned to trust herself, to walk through life with a quiet, steady confidence that does not depend on the presence of others. She does not need a crowd to validate her, does not need a companion to feel complete. She moves with purpose, with certainty, with a fire inside her that no one can extinguish. There is something powerful about a woman who is unafraid to stand alone. The world may look at her and wonder how she does it, how she wakes up each day without a familiar face to lean on, how she continues forward without reassurance from others. But she knows a truth they do not. Her strength does not come from those who walk beside her. It comes from within. She walks alone, but she does not walk in fear. She walks in the direction of her dreams, toward a life she is building for herself, toward a destiny that does not require approval. She is not lost, she is not missing anything, she is simply becoming everything she was always meant to be. She once believed that belonging was something given, something granted by others, a place at the table, a hand extended in friendship, a voice calling her name. But life has shown her that belonging is not something she has to wait for. It is something she claims for herself, something no one can take away. There were times she looked around and saw only empty spaces, times she felt the sting of being left out, overlooked, forgotten. She wondered if she was meant to exist on the edges of life, watching from the outside as others moved in circles of connection. But she no longer wonders. She knows now that she does not need an invitation. She does not need permission. She does not need to be chosen. She belongs simply because she is here. She is not defined by who includes her. She does not measure her worth by how many people call her a friend. She does not need to prove herself worthy of love, of connection, of being seen. She has already proven it to herself. She has walked through silence and found strength. She has stood alone and discovered power. She has embraced the truth that belonging is not about being surrounded. It is about being at peace with who she is. She moves through life with an unshakable sense of self, knowing that she is whole, knowing that she is enough. The world may not understand a woman who does not seek validation, a woman who does not wait to be accepted, a woman who stands alone with confidence. But she does not need their understanding. She is not searching for a place to fit in. She is creating her own space. She is writing her own story. And in that she has found the deepest, truest sense of belonging, the kind that can never be taken away. She stands in the quiet of her own existence, not as someone who has been forgotten, but as someone who has been found by herself. The world may look at her and see a woman who walks alone, a woman without a hand to hold, a woman without a familiar voice calling her name. But she knows the truth. She is not lacking, she is not waiting, she is not incomplete. She has built herself from the ground up, piece by piece, moment by moment, through every silent night, through every unshared victory, through every lesson learned in solitude. She has walked roads where no one followed, sat in spaces where no one noticed, and yet she has never been lost. She has never been without purpose. She has never been without strength. There was a time she believed friendship was a measure of worth, that being surrounded was the only proof of belonging. But she has discovered a different kind of belonging, the kind that does not depend on others, the kind that comes from knowing who she is, from loving herself in a way that no one else ever could. She does not seek approval. She does not seek validation. She has already given those things to herself. She has faced loneliness and turned it into wisdom. She has embraced solitude and transformed it into power. She has stood in the absence of others and realized she was never truly alone, because she had herself all along. And that, more than anything, is what makes her unstoppable. The world may not understand a woman like her, a woman who does not fear being alone, a woman who walks with her head high, not because she has never been broken, but because she has learned to heal herself. They may call her distant, they may call her different, they may wonder how she finds joy without a circle to belong to, but she does not need them to understand. She is not here to fit into their expectations. She is here to live fully, to rise fearlessly, to stand in her own light without apology. She is not waiting for friendship to complete her. She is not waiting for companionship to make her whole. She is already complete. She is already whole. She is already everything she needs to be. And that is more than enough.